Please consider liking the video and subscribing. Okay, let's begin. Black Mirror, a show that needs no introduction, one of the best Netflix original shows out there. I recently binge watched the entire series and was like, wow, this is pretty good. But what I love about Black Mirror is the fact that it's an anthology series, a series that each episode stands alone as its own story. Even the title of the show itself had some interpretations of it. Its meaning for me, it's a dark reflection of humanity's evil and nasty depravity, which is why this show is so intriguing. But man, some of these episodes stay with you, especially the endings. So in this video, I wanted to go over 6 of the darkest episodes and endings to Black Mirror. This is just my opinion. Arguably, every single episode could be in this video. So if you have your own dark ending and you would love to share it, please write it down below in the comments. I would love to read it. So spoiler warning ahead if you haven't seen the show, which I highly recommend you do. But be prepared to be left a little disturbed. So once again, spoiler warning. All right, here we go. In the spirit of Christmas, the first episode on this list is White Christmas, an episode packed with deep emotion that gives a dark twist to the feeling of Christmas. This is one of my favorite episodes. The performance of John Hamm was phenomenal. A quick synopsis of the episode, it includes Matt and Joe, played by Rafe Spall, and also a very well performance. Basically, us the viewers are led to believe that both guys have been living here together in a world covered by snow in a shack in the middle of nowhere, as Matt tells Joe about his own personal life, how he's a dating coach, but on one night he witnesses the murder of one of his clients, firsthand through their eyes, through highly technological lenses. Joe, feeling this sort of trust with Matt, opens up about his past. He talks about how he had a fiance and one night he finds out she's pregnant, and the two have this nasty fight as to whether or not they should keep the baby. She ends up leaving him and blocking him, which means that she can't hear him or see him. She just sees a silhouette of a person, and vice versa. Many months later, he sees her, and once again, he sees that, whoa, she kept the baby. She didn't get rid of him, so he goes and confronts her, but because he's blocked, it means that he can't also see their child. So every Christmas, he goes up to her dad's house and watches from the woods. Yes, I know, it's kind of creepy in the wrong context, but one day while watching TV, Joe sees that his wife was killed in a train crash, meaning that the block has expired and he could see his daughter. Later on, it's revealed that she in fact cheated on him with one of her friends. Angry and frustrated in the heat of the moment, while being confronted by his ex-fiance's father, he kills him with a snow globe. The ending of this episode is dark because no character wins. Joe confesses to Matt about the murder, which we see that this show that we're following is actually a digital copy of the real one who's locked up in a holding cell. The police force Matt to help because he wanted his freedom. The episode ends with Matt being told that he will be registered as a sex offender and is to be blocked by everyone in the world, unable to talk to or interact with anyone ever again. As for Joe, his real life self would be sent to prison. But in my opinion, who got the worst of it, I'd say Joe's digital copy, because one of the officers leaves Joe's conscience on and sets the time for the world for 1,000 years per minute, meaning every minute that passes for us is 1,000 years for him. They leave to celebrate Christmas, and we see Joe tormented under the loud song of "I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day." Yeah, this one is just messed up. Imagine being in prison in one cabin for basically tens of thousands of millions of years, listening to one never-ending song. Even Matt, yes, he got his freedom, but is he really free? Nobody will ever speak to him, or he will never be able to talk to anybody ever again. What did you think of this ending? Moving on to number 5, Lock Henry, another very good episode with a sinister and dark ending. Basically about a documentary crew led by Davis and Pia, who want to make a documentary that will not only make a great story, but make them famous. And well, be careful what you wish for. They decided to do a documentary on horrible murders that took place in Davis's hometown, the murders of Ian Adair, a man who would kill and torture tourists. I won't go into major detail as this episode is really well thought out and written, but to skip to the end, it's revealed later on that Ian Adair was not acting alone. In fact, it was Davis's father and mother who were equally a part of this, if not more. Pia makes this discovery by watching old VHS recordings. In this disturbing scene, she sees footage. We see Davis's mother, who seemed like a nice lady, torment the poor tourist. As Pia tries to leave her house to tell Davis, his mother catches on quickly and follows her through the woods. As Pia is very close to making her escape to Davis, in a, might I say, an unnecessary death, she falls and hits her head on a rock. When I saw this, I was like, come on. Like, this was the only problem I have with this episode. I think that Pia deserved better. But anyway, Davis's mother, seeing no reasonable way out of this, gives up on finding Pia. She decides to go back home, where she lays out a bunch of old VHS tapes and a suicide letter, and she also decides to hang herself. We cut to much later. The documentary trailer is released, and it's on what we saw. Basically, the whole episode is the documentary. Davis made it. He achieved his dream of becoming well known and making it big in the documentary industry, but at what cost? In the end, you can see that Davis is sad and feels terrible about everything. So he returns to his hotel room alone with a glass of champagne and his reward. He reads the letter his mom wrote for him that says, "For your film, Mom." He starts to cry as he looks at the award. This ending had me baffled. Everything he thought he knew about his life, his entire world was just turned upside down, and at what cost? To achieve fame and success. I like how this episode is basically the Wario meme. Once again, such a dark ending. Yes, the town of Lock Henry is thriving. It's sad because Pia couldn't be there to see the success. But once again, was it worth it? Leave a note down below. What did you guys think of this one? Next on this list is Shut Up and Dance, an episode that just hits you like a truck with its ending. Again, another well-written, well-performed episode. This episode is basically about how far would someone go to protect who they really are. The main character is a young guy named Kenny who had his camera hacked while he was, doing stuff to himself. Anyway, the hackers then demand him do things that escalate very quickly, from picking up a cake to robbing a bank. Ooh, that kind of rhymed. But while I was watching this, I was like, wait a second, why does he care so much that people could find out that he was on the hub? Like, who cares, man? Well, this is where the ending just punched me right in the gut. Towards the ending, he must fight another man to the death, who was also in the same predicament as Kenny. He goes to the woods and sees this man who is a cheese pizza lover. And so naturally, us the viewers are rooting for Kenny, like, yeah, come on, Kenny, beat this dude up. And so they fight, but Kenny kills him off screen. We're led to believe that Kenny's been successful, and his secret of spanking it to corn is safe. As Kenny is walking home, he sees police cars and gets a call from his mother. He answers. He hears her crying. She asks him that, what was he looking at? It's revealed that Kenny this whole time was into cheese pizza. The cops approach him, and Kenny gets the troll face on his phone. This group of hackers never intended to hide any horrible dark secrets. This ending was dark AF. This whole time I was rooting for the guy. I was like, okay, he's embarrassed. He doesn't want people to find out that, he was smacking it. But then I felt betrayed. So yeah, he got what he deserved. Really such a good episode that once again, nobody had a good ending. The pain that the mother must have felt hearing this about her own son, or even Kenny's coworkers, it just goes to show that a cheese pizza lover can live among us, which is pretty scary. So let me know down below, what you guys think of the Shut Up and Dance ending. 15 Million Merits, another episode that had some sinister moments. We follow Bing, played by the amazing Daniel Kaluuya, who gives a great performance. Basically, we see a bunch of people living in this building that there's one job to do, pedal a bicycle. That gives them merit points that they spend on necessities like toothbrush and food. Once again, this episode is very long and I wouldn't do it justice by explaining all of it, so I'll jump to the end. After Bing's friends and love interest, Abby is forced into the corn industry by one of the hosts of Hot Shots and a drug that they gave her to make her more compliant. She has a life of performing disgusting and degrading acts. Bing, who had feelings for this girl, feels really guilty and ashamed that he kept pushing her to be on this show, only for her to have a really bad outcome. This episode overall is very dark, and it sheds some light on the hierarchy and classes that us humans have separated ourselves into. Anyway, Bing goes on the show with a shard of glass, threatening to kill himself. Live on air, he gives this long, great acted speech about the current society that he's living in. The judges sit back in disbelief and shocked. Bing awaits to see what his fate will be until one of the hosts offers him a chance to broadcast his thoughts on one of their own programs. Bing takes the offer, and later on at the end of the episode, we see him sitting in a penthouse living very comfortably. And when it's time for his show, he pretends like he's one of the people fighting the elite upper class that he's become. This ending really hits because he sold his morals, his belief for a better life, lying to people that he's fighting the system when he's living off of it. We don't see Abby anymore. It'd be left to assume that she stayed in the industry and still making videos. Bing has a better life, but at what cost? He is another puppet of the system. Maybe deep down below he feels ashamed of himself, but it's already too late to go back. Let me know down below, what'd you think of this episode? As many dark moments and the greed and the consumerism that they showed, I'd say is a somewhat real representation of the world that we actually live in. Coming in at number 2, we have Playtest, an episode that is really sad. We follow Cooper, a man who was traveling the world, seeing different sights and places. He ends up in London, where he runs low on cash. He ends up signing up for this new video game experience that takes AR and VR to the next level. He meets with Katie, who shows a whack-a-mole game that he enjoys a lot. She then asks if he wants to be a part of a more intricate and complex experience. He agrees, and the two go to meet the CEO of the company, Xiao. Like the others on this list, I won't go into much detail on this episode, so I'll cut straight to the end. After all of Cooper's heartbreaking and traumatic experiences, he makes it to the access point, a place in the simulation that allows him to exit. He opens the door and finds an empty room, which Cooper thought he was going to see his mother. One of Cooper's worst fears is catching Alzheimer's, which both his mother and father have. Cooper is in the room where Katie is guiding him through the game via earpiece. He's telling him these horrible things about himself. At first, it would seem that this headpiece to play the game has malfunctioned, and Cooper begins to lose his mind. He quickly doesn't recognize who his own reflection is. He collapses, and both Katie and Xiao run into the room and exclaim how they can't do anything about it, and soon Cooper will lose his memory. Cooper, terrified, lies on the ground, and us the viewers are led to believe that this will be his fate. But no, it's much worse. Cooper then wakes up back into the room where Katie and Xiao were before starting his adventure. They apologize for his experience, pay him, and he leaves and goes back home to America, where his mother is. She sees him but does not recognize him. She starts to dial his phone number, then this is where things take a very dark turn. Cooper is still in the game. He hasn't escaped. He has a malfunction with his headpiece due to an incoming call from his mother, and instantly dies all in 0.04 seconds, meaning his experience lasted many hours, but for the observers, not even a second. What's even more sad is, while he's dying, he says the words "Mom," calling out for her one last time. I in fact saw this episode with my mom, so it hit me a little harder. So what makes this dark is that for Xiao, Cooper was just another experiment. He didn't care about his world or his problems. He saw him as just data. Cooper will never be able to go home. His mother will always call him and maybe even end up forgetting about him. She will live home alone forever. This was such a dark episode, a great concept, but of course with Black Mirror, nothing ends with sunshine and rainbows. This is one of my favorite episodes of the entire series. Let me know down below what you guys think of this episode's ending. Finally, at number 1, it's Beyond the Sea, perhaps the saddest and darkest ending of any episode in the show, and many people would agree with me. This episode stars Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett, who both did exceptional, so shout out to them. This episode dives into the subject of cloning, or as they would call it, replicas, a technological leap in an alternative 1969. We follow 2 astronauts, Cliff and David, who are on a very long space mission, but it isn't all too bad because they can always slip into and out of their replica forms back on Earth, which they can be with their families and just live life. But on one night, as David is sleeping, people break into his home. He tries to fight them off, but the numbers overpower him. They cut off his hand and make him watch as they brutally murder his wife and kids in front of him while he's helplessly tied down, powerless. They then kill his replica self by setting it on fire. So, I'll cut to the end in one of Black Mirror's most sinister twists. After Cliff has let David use his replica to live life and go back to painting pictures, he begins to catch feelings for his wife, which she gives into for a little bit until she shuts it down and tells Cliff to never let David use his replica again. At the climax of the episode, Cliff gets a call that there's an emergency up on the ship. He meets with David, who explains how one of the tubes is leaking. Cliff gears up and goes to repair it, only to find out that it's totally fine. During this time, David uses Cliff's replica to go back on Earth to do something horrible. Cliff is stranded out in space, waiting for David to open up the hatch to let him in. He's waiting out there for a couple minutes until David opens it. Cliff is bothered by David, asking him where was he. Cliff says that he went out to use the bathroom, which is like, come on, really, just a bad lie. Cliff notices that his tag is missing, the one he uses to use his replica self. He asks David, what did you do? He runs back to his bunk to convert his consciousness to his replica. He goes into his house, calling out for his wife. He runs to the kitchen, which was set up for a very nice dinner, now filled with blood. Cliff looks at his hands, now covered in blood as well. He cries as he sees the bodies of both his wife and his kid butchered. Cliff returns to the ship where David is. David's sitting at the table and offers him a seat so that he can join him in mourning. The two still have 4 more years left on this mission together. The end. This ending was just messed up. It shows how David was envious and hateful towards Cliff, who still had something to look forward to coming home. David didn't, so he took that away from Cliff. This is my favorite episode of the series so far, so let me know down below what you guys think of this episode. If there was an episode that you feel had a dark ending that I didn't include, please write it down below. I would love to read it. Also, thank you so much for the recent support on my channel. We have hit 600 subscribers. Thank you so much. Please like the video and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and peace out.